The topic of today is 3 steps to simplify strategy. So now in a previous video, I had reviewed a process and a tool that I use with clients to align executive teams and leadership teams on 8 different areas that comprehensively account for all the factors necessary to most improve your chances of winning in market. However, those 8 areas and all the details and that comprehensiveness isn't best to share at large, or the best way to think about strategy, and that you want strategy to be something that all people of your organization can understand, can buy into, can reiterate. And if they can't, it's unlikely that they're going to operate in the ways that are most effective in supporting that strategy. And if they can't understand it, reiterate it, etc., it's likely that it's too complex. It's not simplified enough. So today, we're going to take a look at how you can simplify strategy in a way that everybody can understand, articulate, and you can do this with even the most complicated strategies or complicated circumstances. We'll start there. Let's first define what we mean by strategy. Let's get clear on what the term is. So strategy is 4 things. It is an overarching plan that directs a group of actions or operations, a group of tactics, to achieve a very specific outcome, a particular objective, amidst a particular threat or risk. Now, the word strategy came from a Greek root, which was primarily used in war, and so the objective was very clear: win the war, and the threat was the enemy troops, right? So if business is a kind of war, which is debatable, the point of strategy is to get clear on those 4 things. Is it an overarching plan? Does it direct a group of tactics, or is your strategy literally just a group of tactics? Are you clear on what the objective is? Can you say it? We will have achieved, we will have won when we did X by Y time. And does it account for all the threats or the risks? Okay, so that's how to think about strategy at large. Now, let's talk about the 3 steps by which we will simplify strategy. The first step is to start with and work back from first principles. I was in this meeting once where there were like 15 of the senior most executives from like 15 of the largest brands, household names that we know of. And they were talking about the strategies that they needed to execute to win. And the conversation was centering upon things like, real-time X and Y and Z and AI and machine learning. And if we can only do this, I walk into the store and I get this text message that says exactly this product that I love is on sale by exactly the amount that I need to convert, blah, 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 blah. And there were so many, it was hours of talking about these really nuanced strategies. And my mentor at the time stepped in to lead the conversation and said, pause. You're overcomplicating this. You really need to do only 2 things to win. And you need to do them better than anybody else, as best as possible. 1, you need to get customers who aren't buying from you today to buy. And 2, get those customers who are buying from you to continue to buy and to buy more. It's that simple. Work back from that. So what are the first principles, or the simple things, pillars that we have to focus on as a business? There are 3. It's a very straightforward. A, we need to increase revenue, top line growth. B, we need to increase profit. And C, we need to increase predictability. Every board of directors, Wall Street, every boss you're ever going to have, really they only care about these 3 things in one way, shape, or form. Now you might say, look, I'm a CTO and I'm building out this strategy for my business. I'm not responsible for revenue. Well, think of it more as like effective output. And I use both terms together because if I just say, think of it as output, this is quantity. And you can't just have quantity, you have to have quality, right? But you've got revenue. Profit is efficiency. If this is effectiveness, then the next is efficiency. And down here, you might have stability. You're de-risking, stability, security, accounting for those things that could make the growth in revenue or the growth in profit less predictable. After all, the people that depend upon you just want to know, can I depend upon these things to continue? What kind of variability is there? So that's first principle. Start from there. Instead of starting from all the whiz-bang things you could be doing and tactics and the customer said this, or the latest customer complained about that. We had attrition here. We've got employees saying this. All that could be and should be important, but start with first principles. Second, we're going to apply a combination of the theory of constraints and what I'll call the big domino. All right, the theory of constraints is an operational excellence framework that plays mostly with systems thinking. So in a system, you have this interconnected complexity, and there are several thousands of things you could do to improve that system. And rather than trying to think of all the factors and things that could improve the system, you go to the other end. You say, what is the biggest bottleneck to this system naturally improving and operating at higher levels? And if we remove that constraint, that bottleneck, then all other things will rise. That's the theory of constraints. So for each of these areas, if growing revenue, top line revenue is what's most important, then what is today the biggest constraint or barrier? Let's just say the biggest barrier to you achieving that particular objective. And now, of all the things you could do, again, to remove that barrier, what is the one thing, the big domino, that if you do it, once that's done, all the other things you can and will do will be easier to achieve? So what we're doing here through the theory of constraints is we are streamlining our thinking, we're focusing, okay? And again, when I observe leadership teams, or I have been on leadership teams that have been developing their strategy, and you've got 8, 9, 10 people in the room, the conversation can go in so many different directions. They're starting with first principles and then applying the theory of constraints and the big domino. It really creates a framework by which you can easily simplify the process by which you get to a simpler strategy. All right, what's the last? We want to weight our strategy with discipline. What do I mean by that? All right, well, look, all three of these objectives are not equally important. Example, you are a startup. You've been around for 7 years. You have $7 million of revenue, and you're growing at 20% year over year. To be focused on profitability or celebrating the fact that you've achieved profitability is likely not that interesting to investors if you are not growing. If you've been around 7 years and you're growing, you're only at 7 million and you're growing at 20% year over year, depending on the market you're in. It's revenue that's most important, right? Just example. So we all know that all three of these things are not equally important. Maybe they are at certain times, but rank these. So maybe it's, this is number 1, this is number 2, this is number 3. Now, what most will be tempted to do is to say, well, this is most important. So I'm going to do 3 different things here. I keep capturing that in there. I'm going to do because this is most important, I'm going to have 3 different things I'm going to do here. And because this is second most important, I'm going to do 2 different strategies here. Right now, remember, these strategies inform a group of tactics, a group of actions and operations. So there are tens, maybe hundreds of things that all the people in the organization, if it's hundreds, that's likely atypical, but tens of things that have to be done to support an overarching strategy. But here, you already now have rationalized why there are 6 strategies, 6 overarching plans that are going to inform groups of actions to achieve a particular objective amidst a particular threat. You have rationalized the level of complexity that is unnecessary. So when I say we should weight this, but in a disciplined manner, the ideal way to do this is to say, all right, well, I'm going to move one. I'm going to take the thing that is least important, and we're just not going to focus on that right now. And we're going to now double down 2 different strategies to achieve this first objective. And we're going to focus a third strategy on the second most important objective. And we're not going to think about this right now. It's not that it's not important. It's just right now we need to be disciplined. So this is how you can go about simplifying your strategy in 3 steps. 1, start with first principles. Start with them, work back from them. 2, apply the theory of constraints and the big domino. Thirdly, weight your strategy, but do so in a disciplined manner. Action. What can you do with this? Don't just watch this video, do something. First, take 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, however much you can spare, and walk through this exercise for yourself. What's the objective we need to achieve and the risks or threats to achieving that objective? And now, working back from my first principles, what are the biggest constraints and what is the big domino I can achieve? You can also have all of your leadership team, all of your direct reports, take a stab at this for the team. Have a dialogue about it, see where there are commonalities and where there is lack of alignment. Regardless, this is an effective way to create a simplified strategy and to find ways to align an entire organization along 3 different pillars that they can remember, they can buy in on, they can reiterate, and they can align all of their work and their thinking around. I hope this was effective for you or valuable for you. If it was, like this, follow me wherever you're seeing this, LinkedIn, YouTube, etc., so you get the update on the next one. And at the end of the video now, you'll see a link to a previous video on the more comprehensive approach to aligning an executive team, which you might want to do like a 2-day executive offsite or something of that nature. But for now, I hope this was helpful, and I wish you the best in carrying on in your efforts to be the most effective executive that you can be. Cheers.